social impact group is grateful to reside on the traditional territories of Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwe peoples. UMiWe encourages everyone to reflect on colonialism's enduring legacy and engage in reconciliation meaningfully.
When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a flood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me.
I'm so excited to be kicking off another incredible day. Do you have your coffee? Tea? Mimosa? Let's have a candid conversation, because today I want to color outside the lines. Let's flip choose to express your feminine power and start with discussing power, feminine energy, and then how to choose to express it. So let's get real. Real about the pervasive power dynamics that plague society. So let's not get real mad. What's more vital is what we can do about it. It all starts with increasing our consciousness. So, who has the power in your home? Who has the power in your workplace? Who has the power in your life? Has it changed over the years? What changed it? Power controls everything, whether we create an exclusive or inclusive culture, whether we get hired or fired, whether we feed our cattle grass or grain, whether we enforce wearing a mask or see this red lipstick if I'm wearing a mask or not, whether we have meatloaf for dinner or tofu spinach lasagna. Yum. Our reality is we still live in a patriarchal society where men gain power and privilege from the disadvantages that face women and women-identified people. The worst part? Many of us, women, aren't conscious that this masculine power is still so prevalent. We accept that's the way things are done around here and conform. Where did that acceptance come from? In one word, conditioning. You see, I grew up with 3 older brothers, all of us within 5 years. Cute, right? Thank the powers that be, me in this case, the conditioning didn't take, at least when it comes to 4 of us in 5 years. Everyone would say to me though, "Oh, you must be so spoiled by your brothers." Sure, I had spoiled apples thrown at me, spoiled Barbies by darts being thrown at them, spoiled my wrists by being tied to trees, spoiled my confidence by constantly correcting me, spoiled my sense of belonging by telling me I was adopted. Now, I didn't fall for that one. I look way too much like my mother. So yes, I guess I was spoiled. Spoiled rotten. Being that my mom and I were the minority, our voices were talked over, our opinions were squashed, our views were considered interruptions. And if we did have a good idea, well, it just became a man's. Don't get me wrong. I love my brothers. Okay, 2 of them. We all have one in the family, right? After all, they were just being boys. Now, can we all agree this free reign acceptance of just being boys is part of our conditioning and can be translated into you can do whatever you want with little consequence? This is years and years of conditioning, and that conditioning follows us and shapes our interactions and relationships for a lifetime. Over time, huge strides have been made. Really? So why are men still mansplaining, man validating, and men offering bettering and best for our situation? Man down, I say. In the last month, I read excerpts from Jody Wilson-Raybould's new book. While she was in the Prime Minister's office, it would take a white male minister to repeat or vouch for what she's just said, particularly if speaking about social justice issues or Indigenous rights, before she would even be heard. What could an educated Indigenous woman know about Indigenous rights? In the book Purpose of Power by Alicia Garcia, the founder of Black Lives Matter movement, explains that when Black Lives Matter movement became huge, it was credited to being created by a man with no movement creation education. Unlike the years of Alicia's movement education and implementation. We grew up in a patriarchal society that although there are many capable women, have you been paying attention during the pandemic? Throughout our lives, we have been either pushed down, stepped over, or cast aside. Have you ever felt pushed down, stepped over, or cast aside? Write me in the chat if you feel me. Yeah, power is granted to a few. The profile of power hasn't changed. It's white and male. And with power comes privilege. We all have different degrees of power. We need to harness what we have, which means seeking it in unconventional places. Diverse women may not even acknowledge their power as they don't see people like them with it. For leaders, I'd like to say it gets easier. But it just means women in agriculture and food had the willpower and perseverance. Some of you may have succumbed to the pressures of, this is the way we do things around here, and others may have just blazed your path and perhaps even chose to express your feminine power. You see, power gives us the capacity and ability to direct and influence the behavior of others and the course of events. Beans Gwan is a special advisor on Africa in the United Nations, so I had the pleasure to interview for You, Me, We Amplified podcast, says, men may feel uncomfortable when women question them. Okay, according to More Than Beans. Her perception is that when a woman challenges a man's perspective, she is seen as power hungry and ambitious. And she asks, is it wrong to be ambitious? Is it wrong to have power? The wrongness of it all is what you use that power for. Ooh, that gives me chills. To choose to lean into our feminine power, you need to appreciate that masculine and feminine energy is found in everyone. And I mean everyone, regardless of our culture, gender, or sexual orientation. I'd like you to reflect for a moment. When you hear these characteristics, when applied to yourself, how do you feel? Assertive, winner, ambitious, provider, confident, powerful, innovative, adventurous, leader. When you hear these words and apply them to yourself, how do you feel? Gentle, nurturing, kind, loving, compassionate, empathetic, peaceful, calm, humble. Do any of these words make you feel uncomfortable? Which ones? You're welcome to post in the chat. As you suspect, the first list exudes masculine energy, and the second list emanates feminine energy. When you work, which energy do you tend to lean into more? And why do you think that is? Is it fair to say most of us tap into our masculine energy? This is not surprising for a few reasons. Number one, as mentioned, we are conditioned by systemic patriarchy where men dominate at the top, but also in the multi-layers in our organizations, institutions, and while creating policies. From regional transit to pension funds to developing housing to educating the next generation, to deciding on which issues get addressed with the tens of billions of dollars of funding, to making decisions in agriculture, food, and health care. I was speaking to my doctor about a recent hernia. Don't worry, I'm fine. He was showing me a picture of a male body and how they would address it on my body. I decided not to show you the picture. But I did ask him, do you not have a photo of a woman's body with a hernia? He said, actually, I don't think so. I asked, is that because women don't get hernias traditionally, or the medical community tends to focus more on male health issues? He laughed with embarrassment, and he said, the latter. As a matter of fact, white male experiences are the default for all experiences. Solutions for many issues are addressed without consideration for race, culture, or other genders, which is why our organizations are built on values and policies that work for men, mainly white, able-bodied Christian men. This is also why women's washrooms are always further away, by the way. Secondly, feminine and masculine energies are interwoven within us. However, we naturally gravitate to our masculine energy, particularly because it's external energy of risk, confidence, esteem, where we are active, whereas feminine energy is more internal, love, healing, compassion. Often it's difficult to expose our feminine energy because we are concerned, preoccupied, consumed with our ego and its worries, desires, and demands. Third reason we tap more into our masculine energy is because we are working in industries that were built on masculine energy. Yes, including agriculture. To be accepted, we had to contort ourselves to fit in whatever role we fill. I'm on one foot. You can't see it, but I'm on one foot. Abandoning our feminine energy, or worse, not being connected to it at all. What if we balanced our masculine and feminine energy when we show up and take the lead? Where would our organizations be then? Where would our communities be? Where would our world be? Where would you be? We know the world is out of kilter, and one way to realign it is with the rise of the sacred feminine. The Canadian Indigenous peoples believe, and so do I, that if we create space for feminine energy, our ecosystem will heal. The earth, the marginalized, the underserved, the underrepresented, the vulnerable, and disconnected will be reconnected to their power. Feminine energy is the power we need to access if we are to experience a profound social, economic, or environmental transformation in our organizations and in our communities. Society is conditioned to think in a specific power dynamics. We know this. However, Deepak Chopra says masculine values, when perceived as the only route to power and success, this imbalance makes life joyless. Women have an innate feminine power that has been stifled, stuck, and sabotaged, and it needs to be liberated. By nurturing our feminine energy, you will have the courage to express your feminine power. It'll make you joyful and provide you more positive power in the form of living your most meaningful life. If you want that. In one word, what practices embody feminine power to you? Place it in the chat. In my book, Make Your Contribution Count for You, Me, and We, I interview over 100 women in 25 countries who are business leaders, politicians, educators, advocates. Their stories, values, perseverance, and social impact expose me to the power of feminine energy. Each one of these change makers interviewed utilize 8 practices. So let's push aside our ego and express our feminine power. It starts with balancing our masculine energy with our feminine energy. And to do that, we need to give ourselves permission to be our authentic self. Can we be real? It's just you and me. Have you ever fallen into the trap where you tried to prove yourself and, in the process, sacrificed your authentic self? Since I started my career, I felt the need to prove myself to me, others, my brothers. I followed in the footsteps of my father and brothers and pursued a sales career. While working at a media company in sales, we had a speaker who shared the power of communications, how to be more influential, and that they were hiring trainers. He had me hiring trainers. Finally, my dream job, the one I aspired to my entire life. Within the week, I had an interview, then a second, then the final. Prior to the final stage, I reached out to my older brother to share the exciting news. He's the only one, by the way, that didn't participate in my Barbie darting throwing trauma. That's why him and I get along the most. We get into a conversation about the money, my salary. And my brother convinces me that they are not offering enough. So there I am in the final stages of the hiring process. It appears I've been checking all the boss man's boxes. He offered me the job, confirms the salary, and he holds out his hand to shake on it. Not so fast. Big bros in my head. It's not enough. It's not enough. But it's my dream job. I've been waiting the entire life for this opportunity. But it's not enough. So I said to the boss man, "Thanks, it's not enough." He replied, "That's too bad. You would have been a great fit." What? Now, I should be clear about something. The salary was double what I was making now. I wanted the dream job. I wanted to learn. I wanted the money. It seems so ridiculous now. It seemed more important for me to prove myself to my beloved brother than to be authentic to my dreams, desires, and destiny. I almost lost everything. Somehow, I worked myself back into the offer, suggesting, although it may not be enough, it will be enough for me. Oh, that was 22 years ago. And I've been speaking on stages and training rooms, boardrooms, and moderating panels and hosting events ever since. We often resist our authenticity out of fear of being judged. People may think you're not smart enough, you're not innovative enough, you're not strong enough. Have you seen a woman lift a car when her baby's in jeopardy? Or people may say, you're too aggressive, you're too mean, you're too itchy. Can we all agree never to call another woman itchy? You dress inappropriately, your hair is unprofessional, you are too fat, thin. Really? Is that all you got? You're too jealous, capricious, vain. I know men who look in the mirror way more than you and I ever will. You're too nice, weak, timid, fragile, emotional. What's wrong with emotions anyway? Listening to this constant noise will only cannibalize our self-worth and lead to, I'm a fraud. Anyone? We begin to expose our power and potential when we realize how much our feminine energy has been distorted and suppressed in ourselves. So get rid of the things that aren't serving you. Kick off those high heels. Throw off that wig. Let your gray hair grow. Wear that bathing suit. Yes, that one. Be loud, proud, and passionate, and embrace your authentic self. It is time we claim our space unapologetically. There's no sorries here. Our authentic selves need to take up more space at home, at our offices, in the boardrooms, and on the farms. For years, men have gone for jobs that they are not qualified for. Well, women get the qualifications before we go for the job. Is that masculine energy of confidence and overabundance of self-worth that drives men to say, I got this. We need a little more of that. Self-worth is the light that shines from within but can emanate to the masses. We all can be prisoners to our childhood. I need a breath. As I was saying, we all can be prisoners to our childhood or a circumstance that restrains us from being our authentic selves. So try this. Take a moment. Take a photo of this statement and fill it in now or later. But it could sound something like this. I, Suzanne S. Stevens, has surrendered to the expectations that my brothers had of me. As a result, I tend to stay quiet at the dinner table rather than share my opinions. That's obviously changed. From this day forward, I'm going to embrace my powerful voice and share my opinions confidently, as that will lead to me living my most fulfilled life. I'm convinced I became a speaker for 2 reasons. 1, to make a difference, and 2, so someone would have to listen to me. Authenticity is feminine energy and is fundamental to expressing our feminine power. Courageously, you can now choose to unleash that power. Every woman I've interviewed that's had a profound impact has shared it's not until she chose to express her authentic self did her ambitions, influence, and social impact align. That power is at its strongest when used not to push people down, but to lift people up. Let's dive deeper into the feminine power practices that each woman, trailblazer, changemaker, and pioneer I interviewed radiates, as shared in my book, Make Your Contribution Count for You, Me, We. We need to start with this notion of that's not professional is a suggestion that that's not masculine energy, and therefore there's no place for it at work. That concept is as old as my Barbies punctured with darts. People now bring their whole self to work, so we must bring our masculine and feminine energy in unison and lead with that power. The first practice of feminine power is integrity. This is where leaders live or eventually die. Although I didn't have the pleasure of interviewing Jody Wilson-Raybould, yeah, I think most of us can agree. She stepped down from caucus because she was asked to compromise her integrity. When we have more women in leadership, where we're not struggling through the patriarchal rules that we never created, but rather be honest and stand by our moral principles, then and only then can we transform communities and companies. Not to mention cabinet. Then we'll experience unprecedented social, economic, and environmental transformation. But you need courage to be steadfast to your values and principles. I remember a t-shirt I was given before backpacking through Africa, conduct many interviews. It said, "Well-behaved women rarely make history." Wow. When is the last time you didn't behave? Am I the only one that has Mike Myers and Austin Powers in their head? What did you do? What impact did you have when you didn't behave? Women are very courageous. Many of you birth children and rear them, which is one of the bravest things we can do. Many of you are likely the first female leader, first female manufacturer, first female born. That can be the most challenging. If you were the first in your field, write in the chat, change maker, trailblazer. Then pump your pipes and we'll wait. There was no roadmap to navigate your position, but you left breadcrumbs for others to follow in your path. And for that, we thank you. Feminine power practice is having the willpower to bump up against resistance over and over and over again. You are told no. You hear yes. You were told absolutely not. You hear not now. You were told you can't, and you hear I can. You were told it's hopeless, and you hear it's hopeful. When you have hope, you have the will to persevere. It has been scientifically proven with rats, so it must be true. You are told you are fired, and you hear I got promoted. Perhaps promoted to chartering your own path, where collaboration is the foundation to move ideas forward. You know nothing is achieved alone. You engage your team and colleagues to have transparent conversations. You aren't their boss. You are a person in a position that respects people in their position, their talents or gifts and perspectives. You lead beside them. You ask questions, you ask often, you listen deeply. Your ego doesn't lead, it follows. You know that the best decisions come from accumulation of different perspectives. You have known this for years, as research for years has shared that diverse perspectives in boardrooms, meeting rooms, and fields create the most innovative ideas. You don't follow all the suggestions, but you do genuinely consider them. Ideas are not checked boxes, and people are not tokens. A good idea is a good idea from a friend or a foe. Some politicians may want to take note. You do what it takes to collaborate to garner the best solution, even if that means hiring someone with a specific skill set at a higher salary than you. You take time to consider all aspects and then provide a recommendation that will serve the best outcome for the most. Due diligence has always been your MO. But you don't ignore your intuition. It guides you and rarely steers you wrong. If something smells like, it likely is. As Sri Aurobindo, an Indian philosopher, said, intuition is a memory of truth. It is that knowing you have without having all the facts. You stand by your gut feeling without disregarding new perspectives or information. Although you will succumb on some issues, as not all conversations need to be won. there's a thought. When it comes to ensuring equity, inclusion, and opportunities, you will dig in because you know compassion is active, not passive, unlike sympathy, which feels for where a person's shoes have walked, or empathy that walks in someone else's shoes that don't fit, especially if they're different as far as their race, gender, culture, or ability. Compassion is walking alongside someone to forge a new path with them so they can walk alone. You take opportunities to stand in the shadows. Let others' light shine. You will invest in someone's success by showing up, standing down, and steadily following. Why? Because your ego is intact. Most of the time. And you know you're here to serve. Serve your team, your family, your community. And with that, you show up not to compete, not to confront, not to prove yourself. Grace is an inner calm of knowing. Knowing you are here to do something bigger than yourself. Knowing you don't need to fight every battle. Knowing that you are steadfast in your morals, beliefs, and values and act within them regardless of the circumstance. Deepak Chopra refers to grace as living in harmony with life. When the rhythm of our body and our mind are in sync with nature's rhythm. I love that the Latin word for grace is the same as the word for gratitude. Grata. There's an inner knowing that by peacefully asserting your values, perspective, and mandate to serve something bigger than you, you can walk with confidence, appreciate your self-worth, and leave the naysayers in the rearview mirror. Now that's feminine power. Which of these practices resonate most with you? We can gain access to the energy that feeds our feminine power when we take time for ourselves to be still, to be silent, to be. We let go of expectations that don't serve us. And that's when you ignite your feminine energy and transform it into a power that manifests as a profound ripple effect to benefit you, me, we. Until next time, let your feminine power count.
When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a flood, gonna drown a mind. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come.